the countdown's ticking too.
Do you see writing over your face, or are you good?
I'm good. I don't see writing at all.
Because I'm going to be getting messages, and people are going to be start joining. And if you see my finger go like this, I'm trying to read a message.
Okay, cool.
Where are you at, man?
I was in my house.
Where do you live, in Southern California?
Yeah, in North Tustin. I live 5 minutes from the Orange Y BMX track where it used to be.
Okay. All right, cool. Is that where you always were from? I mean,
yeah, I lived right up the street from Orange pretty much my whole life.
And you were always in Azusa?
Yeah, we traveled. We're on the circuit.
You were the more than I was in Azusa, and that was my old track.
Where did you live?
South Pasadena.
And what years did you race?
So that's a funny story. That I only raced 83 to like 86 or 85.
Okay.
I came in. It was a short and sweet stint, bro.
Yeah, and then you came back with when did you get back into it?
So I was my brother works for GT for many years, and he'd always tell me like, dude, we're designing this, and we're working on this, and I was always kind of like on the fringe because I went in the Marine Corps for a while, and got out of the Marine Corps, and I tried to start a bike shop. I had a bike shop for a while down here in Temecula, and I started like watching videos and stuff like that, and I always wanted to like, dude, we got some cool stories when we were growing up, jumping stuff, and
yeah,
I was something, and then all of a sudden I got wind of Mike Moranis' podcast, and I was like, dude, that is exactly what I wanted to do 3 years ago.
The dirty
was that
the dirty knobs?
Yeah, the dirty knobs is pretty cool, dude. So I really dig that. The problem is that all of my really close friends don't want to be on camera. It's extremely hard, dude, to get people to come on camera. I don't know why, but it is.
Wow.
So it looks like it's 6 o'clock, and I wanted to thank everybody for coming on and watching two old dudes rant about BMX in the 80s. But once again, my name is Kevin Wilson. I'm your host. I'm the BMX hunter. What I do is at least I used to before prices got crazy. I used to hunt down BMX bikes and buy them and sell them and collect them and that type of thing. But now I started a little podcast on my YouTube channel now on BMX hunters. So our podcast is called, the BMXPERTS. So that's what we're doing now. And I happened to reach out to a gentleman by the name of Jason Donnell, and I've been pumping his appearance here for about a week now. And so if you've seen the videos, I apologize for bothering you guys with all of his pictures and the videos. But Jason, thank you very much for coming on, bro.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So as when these videos I make them, I talk relentlessly ad nauseum about Maine Bikes, about how I raced for Maine Bikes. I was so happy that I am proud that I rode for Maine Bikes, and but I never had a factory ride, and a lot of other guys obviously haven't had factory rides either. And I thought that you'd be a kind of a cool resource to talk about factory rides and the whole growing up factory, living factory, the ins and outs of being on a factory team. And I thought that'd be kind of cool to talk to you about. Now, we were just talking before this started that you were actually from Orange County.
Yeah, I grew up, my whole life I've lived within probably 3 miles from the Orange Y BMX track.
And okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, but that wasn't even my first track. My first track was La Mirada, my first race. It was 1981, I think. I just turned 5 years old. My brother's 7 years older than I am, and my brother Jeff, who also had a really really good amateur career, but him and his buddies got into just riding bikes, and we had some property in Anaheim Hills, and at the time, and then him and his buddies built like a track on our just like property that wasn't being used, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then him and his buddies went to the track, and Jeff was all jazzed on it. So naturally, I joined, and we went La Mirada BMX track. It was my first race in early 1981.
So your brother would have been my age, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how old I'm 55 right now. Is that?
He's turning 55 this year. Yeah.
So
double.
Would he have raced at the same time you were racing as this, or was he already?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I don't remember racing him. I know I had to have raced him.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure you raced him. He was. It took him a few years just because starting a new sport at 13, and there's the fast kids that age were probably doing it for at least a few years.
Yeah.
So it took him to get to
I can attest to that, bro.
yeah. And then, but I don't by mid late 80s, he started really to come around.
Okay, cool. So you were at La Mirada, and then I became aware of you in Azusa doing the stacked Azusa class every night.
Yeah.
Did you prefer Azusa La Mirada, or what was your whole thing?
Well,
I guess La Mirada was.
I think I raced La Mirada twice. By the time I started, I went to Azusa early on too, but I love that track because it had the pretty big starting hill for its day. I mean, especially 5 years old, 6 years old, it was, pretty intimidating at first, but I love that track. Yeah, always did good there.
What do you think about the NBL track?
Is that what we're talking about? Or are you talking about the ABA track?
You're talking about the NBL track.
Oh, I love the NBL track.
Okay.
ABA track, it didn't seem like I raced it very much for whatever reason.
That's where I was. That's where I remember you from. That's so.
I don't know. I mean, we went back and forth, but I was so young. I was just along for the ride. Wherever my parents took me, we're going racing, and
that kind of leads me into my next question or topic or whatever you may call it. But so how long are you dicing it up at Azusa or La Mirada before GT comes? I mean, were you on a bike shop team before that, or you just went straight factory?
So I was 5 through the 1981 season, and I was just 5. I think it was 5 novice. They didn't even have an expert class for 5-year-olds. And then right when I turned 6, actually Powerlite picked me up.
Okay.
Factory Powerlite. Went to my first national was in Everett, Washington with my parents. First time I got on an airplane. And my teammate was Tommy Brackens. And I remember meeting Tommy at the airport. And I just, to this day, I nicest guy in the world and always looked up to him. But yeah, I did good up through as a 5-year-old and turned 6. And my dad was friends with Steve Rink, who was owner of Powerlite.
Right.
Did that for a while. Then I went over to Bassett. John Bassett, his son Ward was racing at the time, and my dad was like a renowned drag boat racer in the 70s and 80s, and so he knew John because he was in the industry and stuff, and they had a pretty good team at the time. And then, so summer of 81, I'm sorry, summer of 82, I was sick. By this time, I'm 6 expert, doing pretty good. I, won some nationals, and we went to this national in Texas, Lubbock, Texas, and I think I won both days. And I got home, and GT called. And actually, the story goes that Rob Fade, who was the pro at the time, went to my house and talked to my dad and said, we want Jason on the team.
Nice.
So that was it.
So okay, so that was cool. So let's take you back to you going on Factory GT and you're on the team, and you're starting to go racing, and you're like racing. I think I listened to Jeff Schofield's dad on Pete Lockevich's on his podcast where he said that they were racing every other weekend, right? The team.
Yeah. So on GT on the team, literally the next weekend, we're in Elkhart, Indiana. I have a good memory, as you can tell. I remember the cities, the towns. I pretty much remember every race. And Jeff Schofield at the time was, as a young amateur, he was a bad dude, and he had the look, and to be a teammate was a big deal, right? So I'm younger, two years younger than Jeff. I'm 6. I think he was 8. Something like that. And yeah, man. So if not every weekend, it was every other weekend, all over the United States, hitting every national. Because at the time, the teams were going for the national #1 title against teams like Diamondback that had a stacked team, Hutch at the time, a lot of other teams, and it was all about more than anything the national team title at the Grands, the points, and we went on at the 82 Grands to win the team title GT, which is that picture that is on one of the pictures on that podcast is the team at the award ceremony with like me, Jeff Schofield, Greg Hill, Craig Bark,
Okay.
And yeah. So we were all in at that point. You know, it was
So
just full factory ride.
does it become as a 6-year-old? Does it become monotonous and like, man, I don't want to do this anymore? Or does it become like taxing on your like family dynamic, or you, or your schoolwork, or your friends, or anything like that? I mean, does it become does the blessing become a curse at some point?
Not really. I mean, it was like we were just so into it at that point as a family. It was just as we just did it as a family, you know. And then GT would pay for me, myself, and a parent to go to every single race, to, you know, all expenses paid. So either my dad usually went. Sometimes my mom would take me instead. And then if Jeff could, my brother, if it was a local race or something close, we would just drive. But no, I mean, it was nothing but positive, you know. I mean, I was expected to win. The pressure, the stakes were high. I think more than anything, as like a 6, 7, 8-year-old, I can't think of any other situation where a kid that young has more pressure, because you're basically hired to win, you know, and your position mattered, you know, because in those, it's probably still like this, but they would put 4 riders and count for the team. So the result of the 4 riders would the amount of points you would get. Obviously, first place is the most points, and so second, third, and so on. That's how you would win the team trophy for the event and accumulate points for the year.
Right.
So, I mean, it was intense, you know. And my dad was a racer. You know, he, like I said, he was a drag boat racer for, you know, 20 years prior, and set world records and won championships. And he was a racer, you know, and he threw me at that point in time, and you know, and made me. Obviously, I think he made me a lot more successful than if he was just kind of passively pushing me along. I mean, it was like, you know, expected for me to win. It was either win, all glory, or second place sucks, and you know, go home and you're a loser. So.
Well, I do remember you winning a lot. It's funny how you said you were talking about Schofield. I always thought that he looked more like a surfer than he did a BMX rider.
Yeah. He had a cool kid. He was such a cool kid. It was cool. It was cool being his team.
Yeah, and
What's
Billy
that?
had like double look, and you had like the clean cut American kid look, man. Like, did anybody tell you look like you resemble like Mikey from the Life commercial?
Mikey likes it.
Yeah.
No,
that one. Looks a little like him. and you never had a cool nickname either. That sucks, man.
Never did. They called me CJ back in the day. That was my parents called me CJ. That kind of just faded off as I got older.
Like, I would have done something like Don Juan, Donnell, or the Dapper Donnell, or something like that. If I was giving you a nickname. That's funny, man. So when Schofield's dad was on the podcast, he had indicated that one of the bad parts about his job was making the phone call, cutting guys loose from the team. Did you leave on your own terms, or did you leave on GT's terms?
So 82, we won the title, and I won the Grands, ABA Grands that year. 83, I was on GT the whole next year as a 7-year-old, and I won the Grands and 7 Expert again in November. And then, but somewhere along that year, Schofield picked up Britta Dude, if you remember that name.
Mm-mm.
And I raced for half a year, and he was really, really fast amateur too. And we kind of hit like, I don't know, we didn't get along. And I think we're kind of slighted that they picked him up, because it's never cool racing your teammate, right? I mean, it's hard enough if you go out there and win, but if you have a teammate, especially, you know, if your teammate wins, it's even worse. But yeah, I think we were kind of, I mean, I had a ride for 84, but what happened was Greg Hill started GHP in the middle of 83. And I know the story well, and it take a long time to tell it. But he's actually doing some really cool commentary now on his GHP sites and social media and stuff, explaining what happened and why he started GHP. And I think to this day, it's, you know, half of them, you know, loves, it's such a great legacy, but at the same time, he had such a good program going with GT. You know, he took a big leap of faith to start GHP.
Yeah.
And him and his dad, they went all in on the team. So after the Grands in '83, I remember going to dinner with Greg and his wife at the time and my parents. And Greg, as a gift for my birthday, actually, because my birthday is December 12th, I had the perfect BMX birthday because the Grands was late November, Thanksgiving weekend. And then I would turn up in age after that. So I got to race my age the whole year. And I was always the oldest at the Grand. So, you know, a little bit of an advantage, but just a great birthday and for the sport at the time. Anyway, so they took me to dinner. He gave me a copy of his book that had just come out. Have you ever seen that book?
No.
Like skills with Greg Hill, signed it and he gave it to me as a gift. And I mean, come on, I'm 8 years old. Greg Hill is in my opinion, on Mount Rushmore of BMX.
Yeah.
And hey, I would like you to ride for me. And I'm going to give you a signature frame and I'm going to pay you $2 for every frame sold. You know, I'm a little 8-year-old, and my parents and my dad and Greg always got along really well from the GT days, and they're buddies to this day, and we're all like family to this day. It's really cool. So how could I say no to that? So was GHP.
So you were before Matt Hayden then?
Well,
right.
So I remember Matt Hayden. Yes, I was, and I remember going to the Winter Nationals, and I think it was in Arizona somewhere at some fairgrounds or something like that. And Matt was riding for Bandito at the time. He was about 13 years old, probably 11, 12, something like that. And he was just coming up and getting good results. And he had a good look too, you know, good looking kid and great style. I love Matt, you know, and at the time I just thought he was the coolest. And I think I even threw his name in the hat to my dad. I'm like, you should pick him up, you know, and whatever. But yeah, I think like a couple months into the season, they picked up Matt Hayden, and at that point went for a full team effort to go try to win the team title.
Yeah, my brother was the same age as Matt Hayden, and my brother diced with him all the time. I was like, dude, come on, man, you can beat Matt Hayden. And it was like, I think he could have beat him a couple times, but my brother was really fast too. But I remember Matt Hayden was my brother's primary competition back then. And there was a guy, Mongoose, back in the day. His name was, bless you, his name was Jeff. Do you know who this guy was? He was on Factory Mongoose, good-looking, blonde-haired kid. Does that ring any bells to you?
I don't know. No.
Anyways, there was a guy named Jeff that was on Factory Mongoose, and he was another one of my brother's primary competition. I can't remember racing any factory guys other than like Dave Wilson and my other teammates on main bikes, but I don't remember racing any really fast like Bubba Hayes. I don't have no good stories about racing any fast guys. But was it kind of so Greg was the team manager, owner, the team manager and the owner at the same time, right? And a rider.
No, actually, Greg hired Mark Pippin, who was the team manager at the time. I don't really know Mark's background before that, but really, really cool guy. And he stayed in the industry a long time and was with a lot of the bigger companies for many years. But yeah, it was a full on. And then later he hired another, something happened there with Mark, and this guy, Sal Eckel, was the team manager for the rest of the time of the 84 season. But so, yeah, but at the same time, it was funny because I was thinking about it when you know, those days we would go on summer tours every summer. And I went on tour with Greg, Matt, Charlie Williams, who was another bad dude. You know, to this day, he's still racing, and him and his kids and stuff. And I mean, we had an awesome team. So it was myself, Matt, Charlie Williams, Tori Bailey, and then my brother, who went with us, because my brother was always close with Greg too. And we went on tour in a 15-passenger van for, I don't know, 2.5 months. And I'm 8 years old, and those are my chaperones. You know, I don't have a parent with me or anything like that. You know, we're just going race to race and staying in hotels, and so many good stories. But
that's
just a different.
You mind if I ask you there, when you're 8 years old, do you have contracts with GHP from your parents, or is it a handshake thing?
Yeah, it was just a handshake deal in those days. I mean, later I got into contracts and stuff, but those times it was just it was handshake deals.
And
as long as
did the contracts come when you turned do the contracts come when you turn pro, or is it, or just when you turn 18 or whatever?
I signed contracts with Redline when I was 14 and 15.
Okay.
So, but I just, in those days, I think people, you know, I don't know, people were more honest back then, but whatever, it just worked out. You know, the teams had a goal. They wanted to win, and
sure,
you know, they needed, you know, like myself to do it. So yeah, so I rode with GHP, and then they lost their funding. You know, you can listen to Greg's stories on what happened there, but the team disintegrated towards the end of the year. I was left without a ride.
Yeah, I heard Greg talking about GHP on the Dirty Knobs podcast. Did you watch that episode?
I did. Yeah.
So is it true? I mean, I would like to find out what happened to all those forks that with the dropouts backwards and all the handlebars with one end longer than the other one. I bet you those are like, you know, crazy valuable now as collector's pieces.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And like the Pattersons had a same story too. I listened to their podcast on Dirty Knobs as well. It's like it was a really good podcast. But yeah, I mean, you know, frames and forks, everything's built wrong. You know, you put all this money out, you know, waiting for your product in 90-day terms and all that stuff. And I can only imagine, you know, all the pressure and, you know, you do it right. I mean, the uniforms look great, the team's great, but you still got to make money to pay for it, you know, and things got to go right for that to happen.
Yeah. My brother and my buddy Corey, they swore by GHP. And Corey's probably watching right now saying, dude, ask more GHP questions. But yeah, he loved his GHP. I was always a JMC guy, but I had a reach.
Yeah, I had my own signature frame that year, and I couldn't write cursive yet. So my dad, so on those frames, I have two of them to this day, and it's a signature on the chain, but it's my dad's. I couldn't even write cursive yet.
Man, what a life, dude.
And
that's so bitch.
Going to these races, especially with Schofield, we were like mini celebrities, right? And there would be lines sometimes at the airport, and we'd get to the track, and there would be lines, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 people long in line to get our autographs. I'm 6, 7, 8 years old, and I couldn't write cursive yet. And I remember Schofield making fun of me because I couldn't write cursive. So I'm just, you know, printing my name and because it was all you had were magazines, you know, and these kids.
Fortune, man.
What's it?
Funny, man. Now you should sign your autographs now the same way, dude. That'd be hilarious.
Exactly.
So GHP folds, unfortunately, for many different reasons, I would assume. And then then you went up on you get the call from Greg, or you already knew it was coming.
I don't really remember how it went down, but I'll tell you a story that I mean, I'm still very close with Greg to this day, and we keep in touch and him and his dad have this, or him and my dad have, you know, always to this day have a funny relationship. So my dad smoked cigarettes at the time, and when I would go to races in my bike box, Greg would put in like advertisements from the newspaper, how to quit smoking, how bad it is for you, and he would put it into my bike box. So when I flew home, my dad went to, you know, put my bike together, and he would have all these pamphlets on how bad smoking is, and it was like Greg's way of just, you know, busting his chops. We talk about it this day. It's so funny. But so the money ran out, you know, and I was getting paid $2 a frame that was sold, and then that started to run out, and it was all you know, it was all in good faith. Sure, yeah. For happening. But that year at one of the races, Greg won a pro race, and they gave away a 1982 YZ80 motorcycle. Okay. And so as a parting gift, he gave that to me, a brand new motorcycle, 8 years old, as a thank you for you know, riding, and it's just a good faith gesture. And I mean, that's the coolest thing ever, you know. To this day, I rode the crap out of that motorcycle. I had some good times.
So you did
But anyway,
ride motocross before that? Before BMX?
yeah, I rode motocross
Okay.
for a few years as fun. I didn't never got super good, but just as a hobby and stuff like raced a bit. But so into the 1985 season, we get a call from Mike Sievers, who was Chicken George Sievers' dad, and he became team manager of CW, and so he and Mike Sievers knew that that I was out of a ride, out of a sponsorship. Excuse me. So that's how the CW deal came about, and CW went real all in on a team for the 1985 season to again try to go win the MBL and ABA team titles, factory team titles. So that was
you good? How did you
what's
do
that?
on CW? How did you do on CW when you got on the team? Good?
Oh, it was probably my peak there those years. So I was 9 years old. I think as a 9-year-old, I won the world championships in Whistler. I won the MBL Grands. I won the ABA Grands. The next year, I won the world championships again in Slough, England. I won the MBL Grands, ABA Grands. The next year, I blew it at the world championships, but I won the Grands again. And so that whole stretch, I did a lot of winning. It was fun.
Wow, man. That's Did you have a problem with the CW bars? Did you race? You probably raced junior.
That's funny. I mean, I didn't have the full size CW bars, but they had the mini ones or the junior ones that were just like a replica, but a smaller one. And everybody's hating on those things, but I ran them. I didn't. It's the damn handlebar, man. They kind of look different. They look funny. And I went through the same thing with the Redline bars later with the forklifters, the triangle. Yeah. I guess but no, the CW bars, I ran them. I liked them. They're cool.
I heard saying that he didn't want to ride them, and I don't know if you saw that where he was bad on the bars. I was like, really? Everybody has those damn bars.
Yeah,
I thought they were that bad. I mean,
yeah. But hey, that guy, he was so meticulous, and if he didn't like it, he wasn't going to run it, right? And I mean, he had his reason. But again, I didn't ride the full. I don't know if they were different than what I had on or whatever, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of funny like banter about the CW bars online lately.
I still have a pair of pairs. I'm trying to sell them. If it's like a pair of CW Pro bars,
they're probably worth a lot of money now.
Yeah, they are. But anyways, yeah. So CW. I mean, is it true that all the phase ones broke? Did you
all the what?
You ever have a phase one, or was that after your time?
The phase one was a year before I got on. So I think the phase one was like 84 and earlier. Okay. So, but I did hear about those. Yeah.
So it's true that they did break all the time.
I heard some stories about it. But I mean, CW was Roger Worsham, who was the owner. I mean, the factory was, I don't know if it was Anaheim or Placentia, I think it was, but he had a full-on suite operation, and they pumped out a lot of product, man. And in those years, that's when freestyle started booming, and he had Seppi Mays, Diz Hicks. Those dudes were rock stars, man. They were Motley Crue. Everywhere they would go, chicks and leather and doing their tricks, and they were gods, man. I mean, those were some good years, and CW was definitely a cool in the mid '80s.
All I think about is Mike Miranda, dude. CW and Mike Miranda.
Yeah, Mike Miranda. Yeah, again, another Mount Rushmore in my opinion. I mean, King of Style, and yeah, that Hollywood ad. I think I said this on someone's social media, but it's probably my favorite picture of all time is Mike Miranda on CW on with the Hollywood sign in the background doing some like Leary or something like that. It's just badass.
My favorite picture is the one when Scott Breithaupt is jumping off the roof into the pool with Perry Kramer looking up.
Yeah,
that's my favorite. I was an SC guy. So so you were on. That was your time frame, right? When Mike Miranda was on, or was that after you? Before?
Yeah, he was on. for some of that time, I think he had just moved on to Hutch. Because when I got onto CW, Pistol Pete was the pro at the same time, and I traveled, and that's another one of my heroes, man. Pete Lonkarovich, and just such a stud. And
he's not in the Hall of Fame, correct?
Huh?
Pete's not in the Hall of Fame, is he?
Oh yeah, he's got to be. If he's not, I'm gonna protest. He has to be. There's no.
I don't. Should be. I don't think he is.
He won 4 titles, ABA titles.
Man, I'm gonna look stupid right now. I got. If anybody knows on there knows if Pete Lonkarovich is in the Hall of Fame, let me know.
Well, if he's not, I'm gonna call USA BMX right now, because I mean, to me, I mean, him and I was thinking about this too. You get into the later eras when Greg and Stu and the Pattersons kind of ride off into the sunset. It's Pete Lonkarovich and Gary Ellis, you know, those two, and a lot of other good guys within that for sure. But those two, to me, I mean, the next 10 plus years, you know, they did pretty much all the winning.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to Pete was the pro, and then the next year Pete went on to Haro, and he signed a big contract with Haro. And so
I've read the Wikipedia on this, bro. I heard that he pissed W off so bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know the story. Yeah. But hey, it's all about
the right. So he quits the team, whatever, and goes to Haro, and then he goes to the Grands, and then Roger sends him a cease and desist letter saying you can't ride in a Haro uniform. He said, "Screw you," and Pete won, right?
Yeah. There was some serious tensions. I remember that. There was some big, you know, tensions going on, and you know, Pete just was doing his thing.
I thought that's hilarious. Man, Pete said, "Screw you, man. I'm done, man. Hey. You sue me. I won."
Right. Money talk.
So then Haro, man. So I was always on the fence about the Haro race bikes, man. Like, because I had a couple Group 1s in a couple years ago. Is that what you guys raced? You guys raced stock Group 1s, or what'd you guys race?
Oh shoot! Well, I didn't. I mean, when I raced for Haro, that was way later in my career. That was the year 2000, and by then that was like post monocoque. Remember the Haro monocoque bike, which was, you know, that was a pretty cool bike. I mean, I rode one. I didn't like it, but I mean, it looked cool. But I rode. I forget what it was. I have one hanging on my garage, but it wasn't Group 1. Group 1 had phased off by then.
Was it like a ZR or a ZS or a Z? Yeah. Like a weird design.
R1 with kind of like a girl bike. It wasn't that stoked on it, but whatever. It paid the bills.
and that's another. Since you said that, that's another thing that I always was curious about. At what point in one's career do you think, you know, I really don't even like these bikes. They're just paying my salaries, or because I guess when I was racing for Main Bikes, I loved that damn bike shop so much.
Yeah.
That I would have paid to have been on the team. And I wonder at what point is it B Pro, A Pro, or is there any time where someone says, you know what, I don't care what the bike is, just pay me. I mean, obviously that happens, right? But I was wondering if
I'll tell you how it went down. So, for me, CW was 85, 86, 87, and then Roger Worsham started RevCore, which was 88 and 89, and that famous RevCore pedals, which I'm sure those. I mean, you're a collector; those are probably got to be valuable. Those are sweet pedals. But anyway, so my point.
Jason, Mike Allen just says that P was inducted in 1997.
There you go. Right.
I apologize. I'm a big Pete fan. I just didn't know that he was inducted. I apologize to the listeners.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So to get into that, so in the 1990 season, I was 14 at the time, and again I was out of a ride because CW RevCore Roger folded, and he disappeared, and not disappeared, but he just got out and went on to other things. And you can ask me some questions on that. It's a pretty funny story, but so I out of a ride, and I was riding for Mike Redman, MRC, and he was helping me out, and he was training me. I was probably one of the first riders that he ever trained, and to this day, he's, you know, should be in the Hall of Fame for many reasons, but being a BMX trainer, I mean, he's the best. And so I was his first rider that he really worked with. And then Billy Griggs was on Redline at the time. And he'd been on Redline for a couple of years as their pro, and Billy, another BMX god,
Yep.
Asked me, "Hey, you got anything going?" And I'm like, "I'm all ears." He's like, "Well, come on board. Let's go." Because once again, Billy got the green light to go try to win the BMX. I mean the national factory title. You know, so he got the green light from Chuck Hooper to put together a team for the 1990 season. And so, and shout out to Lee Zanow, who I think's watching this. Robert Lee Zanow was was my teammate on for a couple of years on Redline. But anyway, get to the point. So their bikes sucked, right? Their frames, their geometry was 10 years obsolete. I tried riding it. It was terrible. It was heavy. The geometry was awful. So I went and got a free agent limo from Yvonne. A free agent limo was bike brand you're familiar with, but the limo was the model, and it was the best bike out there. And because the reason being is because they figured out a longer back end is better. And anyway, so for 2 years I rode a free agent limo with Redline stickers on it.
Classic.
So there you go.
Classic, man. Yeah. I read an interview with Boris Dixon about the creation of free agent. And it was interesting where he said about and how it started. I don't you mentioned the lady's name. What was her name again? I'm sorry. That ran free agent.
What's that?
The lady that ran, what was her name again?
Yvonne.
Shoop, right?
Yeah.
Shoop. Yeah.
Yep. And Brent Shoop was her son. Her son.
I read an interview with Boris Dixon where he said that he saw Greg Grubbs at a national with free agent on the back of his jersey. Have you heard this?
No.
So Boris said that he saw Greg Grubbs at a national where he just had free agent on the back of his jersey, and he called Yvonne and said, "Hey, I have a new idea for a bike company. We're going to call it free agent. I'm going to give you $1,000. Start the marketing. I'll worry about making the frames." And that's how the whole thing started. That's what I read in the interview, and I guess there was some tensions because he mentioned that he goes, "Oh yeah, Yvonne says she started free agent when it was my idea," or something like that. It was funny. You haven't heard that?
No, but that, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. And it was always a kind of a peculiar name, free agent, you know, but it stuck. And yeah, Yvonne, that free agent as a team, they had, you know, for a few years there, they had quite a team and all that. So,
and not to be confused with the Robinson Amtrak, right? Was it? Amtrak Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Townsend.
Yeah. That's.
Yeah.
I think my brother was the product manager for Robinson, Dyno,
Powerlite.
and Powerlite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Auburn.
I remember going to my bachelor party in like 98, 97. He goes, "Dude, we just created this new bike called the Cockpit, man. It's fucking sick. You're gonna love it." I'm all, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a monocoque, dude." I go, "What's a monocoque?" So I remember the day that he came and he goes, "Dude, we got this badass bike coming out. You're gonna love it." So I was like, "Oh, cool, man. I gotta check it out."
Yeah, I think Billy Griggs had a lot to do with that bike, or maybe that was his design or something like that, wasn't it?
Maybe. Yeah, because Billy Griggs was there at the time. Yeah. He was more of the specking it and that type of thing at a time. Yeah. But I forgot where we were. What team were you on? You're on Redline at this point.
So 1990 Redline all the way to 95. So the rest of my amateur career, Billy was the pro, Billy Griggs, and we had a great team. And you know, Billy was awesome. Traveled with him the whole year, and Robert Lee Zanow, like I said, was my teammate, and full factory ride. And then the next year was, that's when, so Mikey King was on Haro and Billy was on Redline, and they switched. It was like, I think on the magazine BMX Action or whatever, they did the big cover story that, you know, they did the switcheroo. So Mike King came over to Redline, and yeah, so, and then that went on for a couple of years, and then Mike King went off into the mountain bike world, and, you know, went on to do great things there. And so 1993, 1994, I was pretty much the only rider on Redline. So I was their sole rider, and it was awesome. You know, it was
you got
just, they put everything. What's that?
All the money, all the support was just for you.
Right? That was it. Yeah. Yeah. Those were good years. And I was,
or you were still
16 old. I was 15 expert.
Okay.
I almost won the ABA title. I lost the ABA amateur title by 1 point in 1991. 92, I was 16 expert, and then 93 I turned pro at the Grands, and then that was it for a while for me. I was burned out by then, and I took a year off after that.
So when you're 16, 17, 15, whatever, what kind of restrictions do the team managers put on you when you're on tour, bro? I mean, are you out partying or getting chicks, or I'm partying with models, or what are you doing at night, man? Are you have like a curfew and shit, or are they watching you?
Well, I didn't have a team manager at that time. It was crazy. We would just book our flights and rent a cars. I couldn't rent a car, so I would have to, how would I do it? I would like just hook up with a pro, whether it was like Eric Carter. I traveled with Eric Carter a lot back in those days. And because he was AA pro doing his own thing, and we would just, you know, I mean, I have stories. I don't know if they're appropriate for this, but yeah, there's some good ones for sure.
If they can do it on Dirty Knobs, we can do it here, bro.
Yeah, more of a Dirty Knobs type of deal. I mean, I don't know, you know, it was yeah, we raced and we trained hard, but we had a lot of fun.
That's nice, man. Because I can imagine when I was that age, of trying to keep myself in line out in the middle of whatever. I mean, I guess Tulsa's it's not too hard to keep your to behave in Tulsa, but once you get to like Miami or something, it might be a little bit different.
Well, thank God there weren't cell phones and social media back then. you got away with a lot more.
So you stop racing for Redline and you take a break. You like, you know what, I'm done. I'm retiring, or you didn't consciously retire. You just kind of faded off, right?
Well, yeah. So 1994, I turned pro. 93 Grands, I turned pro. 94, I was a senior in high school, and keep in mind, from 5 years old to a senior in high school, I was a factory sponsored rider on the circuit, 30 weekends a year or more. I was just burnt, dude. I'm like, I want to be normal. I want to go to high school parties. I want to, you know, sneak in. Hopefully my parents won't catch me. I want to do all that normal stuff. And yeah, so I had a factory ride in 1994 as the AA pro for Redline. And I raced, and I remember calling my team manager at the time, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I don't have any desire, you know, and I kind of regret it, you know, because I feel like I missed out. If I would have just, you know, if I'd have stuck with it, it might have been different for me. But they're like, no, man, it's cool. Just race whatever races. We need you to race at least 6 or 7 races this year. And so I'm sitting here with a AA pro, the dream, right? I had the dream all in, you know, on a platter. All I had to do is, you know, get my ass up and go train and get fast. And you know, I was getting a salary, contingency, and I was just over it. I didn't want to do it. And so I raced. I would literally leave my bike in the bike box and not touch it for 6 weeks and go to a race and not do very well and go to another race. And I'm just like, what am I doing? And I finally like, look, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And they're like, all right. So that's when they picked up Justin Green for a bit, and then he got hurt, and then John Purse went on to do great things at Redline as a pro in the mid-late to late 90s. So I thought I was done with BMX, just ready to live a normal life, go to college. And I did all that for a couple of years. But 1997, a good buddy of mine to this day, Tony DeGalato, who was the Haro, he was the team manager at Haro at the time, and talked me into racing. And he lined up a sponsorship for 1997 with Bill Ryan at Supercross. And shout out to Bill Ryan. He's always been there to help me to this day. You know, we check in with each other and love him to death. But he gave me a shot. I reclassified back to A Pro. And I started from the bottom, from scratch, and I just worked. 97, I turned AA pro about halfway through the year, and then just continually progressed until 1998. I started putting in some good results in AA, making a lot of mains, you know, getting a lot of fifths and sixths and stuff like that, and like, which was at that time the pro class. I don't think it had ever been more competitive at that time, because that's when the influx of all the Europeans, the Australians, the South Americans. I mean, you had Christophe Levesque, Thomas Allier, Robert DeWild, Australia. You know, you had Warwick Stevenson come in, and Christian Besserine from Argentina, Mario Soto. You know, God, you know, it really became a world circuit, you know, and it was.
You weren't worried about US no more. Now you're worried about the whole world.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think one year I finished 10 in points in AA Pro, and I was the third American. You know, I'm like, I'm the third American, and you know, best American pro, whatever. I don't know, something like that. Not that I was the third best American pro. I'm not saying that, but
yeah.
Anyway,
it
was yeah, full on. And so the 1998 Grand Nationals, I was struggling. I wasn't making any money. My parents were supporting me. I mean, my parents have been so awesome and integral to my life to this day. And they were always there to support me. So anyway, I'm kind of like footing the bill to race, you know, and trying to make a living. I'm still living at home, but I still need, you know, spending money and off winnings and purse money and stuff like that. And I go and I make the main at the ABA Grands. I get 5th overall, which was a really good result, you know. And so Scott Toth was the team manager at Huffy, and he gave me a contract for the 1999 season. So I rode for Huffy in 1999. Huffy.
And no, you didn't catch the, well, Huffy had a pretty good team, right? So Huffy didn't have the stigma that on the street, right?
Funny. I saw something on social media today about Huffy and Stu, and who would want to ride a Huffy. To me, Huffy was like the pinnacle of for whatever reason, when Stu Thompson was on Huffy in the early 80s, I mean, he was probably
the first.
The king of the sport, really. And then shoot, Mike King rode for Huffy. I thought that was awesome. I always wanted to be on Huffy. And then in the late 90s, they came back with the team, and Randy Stumphauser was my teammate, you know, Hall of Fame last year. I mean, awesome dude, amazing racer.
And plus, dude, Huffy had all the money for the team. Right?
Had all the money. So this is pretty.
You're eating every night, dude, and drinking martinis.
Dude, I signed the contract, and in the mail, I got an American Express card that said Jason Donnell, Huffy Corporation, and it had no limit. So I'm responsible for booking. I can go to any race I want to go to, and I can spend whatever. They just said, you know, well, what's the limitations? Just be reasonable, right? And there's a couple of people, I think Corey Nastasio, the freestyler,
I know he is,
partied a little too hard with his credit card, but we
probably at a strip club in Vegas somewhere or something, then.
Yeah, something.
He's not the crazy horse, dude.
Right. Exactly.
He's not riding anymore, right? He's still riding.
Oh yeah, to this day he's as stylish as ever.
He lived in Temecula for a while, and when I lived in Temecula, when he was on the TV show. What was that TV show he was on?
Oh man, I remember he was on some reality show. Yeah, I forget what it was called, but
yeah. A lot of drama with that dude, man. My kids loved him, dude. Oh my God, they loved that dude. They thought he was the coolest dude ever, man.
I love him too. To this day.
Oh, you were
on it. You should follow him on social media or check it out. I mean, he's still just as stylish as ever. Love that guy. But anyway, so yeah, I literally it was one of my favorite sponsors. That 1999 year was a good year for me. And it was just a fun year. And having American Express. Well, I want to, okay, I'm going to go to the race in France this weekend. I want to go to Japan this week. I could go anywhere I wanted to and just send in a reimbursement to get the card paid or whatever. And
right.
a lady would sign it off. And so that was pretty cool.
But then it wasn't cool enough because you said, you know what, I'm done.
With Huffy?
Yeah.
No. So they lost their budget at the end of the 1999 year.
Works, man.
And the fall nationals, I got second place in AA Pro at Lake Paris, the fall nationals, and coming off one of my best results and best rides. And I got a call the next day from Magoo, who was the team manager, and he's like, "Dude, I got bad news. I don't have a sponsor for you next year." So I'm like, fuck. So I called Tony DeGalato, literally picked up the phone or hung the phone up, picked up Tony. "Hey, I don't have a ride next year." He goes, "Let me call you back." Calls me back in 5 minutes. "Okay, here it is, $2,000 a month. Here's your ride. You're riding for Haro next year, right?" Actually, I want you to ride at the Grands in 2 weeks for Haro. I'm like, "Okay, let's go." And so he sent me a contract. I signed it, and then it wasn't Magoo. It was Rich Vitiello was my team manager, but Magoo had something to do with Huffy back in those days. But it was Rich Vitiello. Calls me back 2 days later. "Hey, great news! I got your ride back for next year. We found some money in the budget." And I said, "Sorry, bro. I'm moving on."
Yeah.
And I kind of had a pit in my stomach, and I'm like, "Well, hey, I guess there could be worse things. I could have worse problems."
So I'm going to ask you a question, and this may sound like I'm talking about. It's going to mess up. This question going to mess up my whole image, bro. But what is the difference between B Pro, A Pro, Double A Pro? What is B Pro? Was that like an 80s term that ended up becoming A Pro in the 90s, or what's the difference?
B Pro was the equivalent of A Pro, but for NBL. So NBL was B Pro, ABA was A Pro, the association. So it was the same class. It's basically the minor league pros. Or if you want to quit Supercross, the 250 class.
Got it.
And that.
So if you're an ABA and you're an A Pro,
there was no B Pro and ABA. It was A Pro.
A Pro. Then you go to Double A when you move up.
Correct.
And then if you're an NBL, it's B Pro to A Pro.
Correct. Yeah, it was confusing. So and then I think NBL eventually just started calling it Double A Pro, and now it's called Elite, which is a European term. So
I was wondering about I always thought it was B Pro, but I always thought that my buddy was a B Pro and ABA, but apparently it was an NBL classification. I didn't know, but wow,
that's
crazy.
Remember it?
Oh, I'm reading the comments. Mike Allen likes to comment. Nice, dude. Anyways, so at one point you'd like say, "I'm done with it," and you step away and you moved on with your life. Now you're doing drag boats like your dad, right?
My brother is.
Oh, okay.
My brother drag boats. Yeah.
I've been on a boat twice.
I'm not that. Yeah.
They scare the hell out of me, man. I don't know how you guys. So now you're in that. So did you ever try to pass this on to your kids? Were they?
Yes. Yeah, we did it for a couple of years. I have two boys that are 10 and 12 now, and we did BMX I took them back to Nashville for the ABA National or USA BMX National. We traveled a bit. We did like the Winter Nationals in Phoenix and Vegas a couple of years, and had a blast. I mean, it was so cool to do it on the other end as a parent and a dad. And so, yeah, we did it for a couple of years. And then,
I'm sorry, I interrupt you. Go ahead.
What happened is my oldest Evan kept getting hurt. And so we were getting ready. The last time we were at a BMX track was 2 years ago, and we were getting ready for a national in Vegas. And he's like, "One more lap, Dad." And he's pumping through. Yeah, always one more lap, pumping through the rhythm section, slips his pedal, slams his head on the on one of the jumps. And I walk out there and I'm picking up his teeth, like shattered a couple teeth. And I'm just like, my next call is going to be Mom, and she's not going to be happy. My wife, of course, rightfully so. So as I tell people, I said, we quit BMX and we want to go do something safer. We're going to go play football. So
drag carts.
And then after football, so now we're done with football, and we're going to do something even safer, and we're racing carts now. So we're all
I try to pass on to my kids. They love BMX, but they're street all the way. They have no interest in racing. My oldest son is hardcore street stuff that I wouldn't even think about doing back in the day, man. Like dropping off of roofs and doing 60 truck drivers and doing bars off of like 20-foot drops. I'm like, you're nuts, dude. I couldn't imagine doing that stuff when I was a kid. But now they make us look like we were like nothing, like standing still, dude.
Yeah, it's just unreal what the younger generation does now, and they do it like in their sleep. It's unbelievable.
So, did you? I guess we can start winding this down. But I was wondering, did you have any serious injuries, like something that really put you out, or not really?
Well, I never broke. I raced for 21 years, never broke a bone, but I did have a couple bad concussions. One being the year on Huffy, I was in New Mexico, and I actually found finally, like after all these years, I found the crash. Someone posted it on YouTube, but I fell over a triple. I was in third in the AA main, made the main. I was in third place, and I think I came up short and slipped a pedal or something, smacked my head, woke up in the CAT scan machine in El Paso, Texas, because they had to ambulance me for a 2-hour ride or something like that. And I had bleeding on my brain and all that. So I stayed the night in the hospital, and my teammates, Todd Lyons, Randy Stumphauser, Chris Sanchez, my Huffy teammates, came to see me, and I'm like, "Get me out of here, man! Get me out of here! Sneak me out of here!" And they're like, "No, dude, you got to stay. We're just here to see you." So and they brought my bag and my luggage. They're really cool. They all made the drive 2 hours to come go see me on Saturday night. And anyway, I woke up the next morning. I look around, I take out the IVs, I grab my bags, and I run out of there.
This is classic.
Book a flight and get a cab. That was my worst one.
I race. I've been on a BMX bike since I was 6 years old too, but I wasn't racing when I didn't start until I was 16. But the worst crash I ever had was, I told Billy about it last week, where the 84, the 85 War of the Stars in Azusa at the NBL track. 17 over X main. I broke my cranks coming out of the gate on my second crank. I went over the bars. I got really jacked up, and that was my worst crash I ever had. Really, I never really wanted. I mean, I was jumping picnic tables, all kinds of stuff when I was younger, but I lucked out. I never really had a bad crash until I don't know. I was probably my mid 30s, and my brother rented out the Orange Wide track for my nephew's birthday, and I hadn't touched a bike in a long time. And I got on a nerve, and it was my brother and a couple of my old buddies I used to race with, and we got on the gate, and I came at it, and I went the first roller, and I got sideways, and I went over. I did like a face plant, and I ended up in the hospital across the street. I told Mike Franzi that story. He's like, "Oh yeah, they had us on. They had an ambulance waiting for us at the track." And so put me in the CAT scan, stuff like that. But that was the worst one that I ever had. And I wasn't even a kid at the time. I was just going around the track at my nephew's birthday party. He's still pissed off at me this day. "Man, you ruined my birthday party. We all had to go to the hospital with you." But,
well,
Anyways, that's crazy. So I always wanted I've searched that NBL race that for years, and I found every main there was except for the 17 and over main. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'd love if anybody's out there that has the 17 and over, do you know if that were you at that track at that race when Larry Wilcox crashed?
Wilcox?
Yeah, Larry Wilcox.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember hearing about it. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
But he got pretty banged up, right?
I thought he broke his leg, but Billy Weeks told me that he broke his shoulder blade or something.
Yeah.
Collarbone. But I was always like, dude, somebody somewhere has to have that race on tape. I'd love to see it. I would love to see myself.
Yeah, sure.
But anyways, man. So I know that you're probably a busy man, and I appreciate you taking the time and coming on. If you knew how many people gave me the finger when I reached out to them, you'd laugh.
Oh, really? My pleasure. I'm always down to talk some BMX. I mean, I looked at the clock. It's been an hour. I can't believe it.
I appreciate it, man. You're a gentleman and a scholar, and I wouldn't be doing the Dirty Fest as due if I didn't ask you, are you going to be at the Dirty Fest?
I'm planning on going. My son's racing karts on Saturday. So I'm planning on going Sunday.
Nice. So maybe I'll see you there. Done. You bring your GHP, your signature model with your dad's signature on it?
I might, man. I might. Yes, asked if I still have the jersey, and I do. I still have a couple.
You can put a necklace around. You can wear it around your neck, dude, like Flavor Flav.
Flav, yeah.
All right, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you on Sunday, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you guys indulging an old man that's still living a dream of BMX and living vicariously through other riders such as Jason. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on, Jason. And if you like